I guess that'll move us into what was part 2 for me, because I watched this thing in 3 parts, which I called the Mysterio Family Feud, but it might have had a more official title than that.
No, this is essentially just picking up where they left off last year's WrestleMania.
Very first thing I wrote was Dom Mysterio needs a new hairstylist.
The mullet.
It's like not even like a real mullet though. It's weird.
Listen, it's what's in with young Latinos right now. So
Okay.
it is
Never
what it
mind.
is. It's just that's just like the haircut, I guess.
Like
Except his is much longer. But a lot of people say it's an homage to early Eddie Guerrero haircut, an early Eddie. So because there is a history between the Mysterios and Eddie Guerrero. So and with Dominik being an absolute shithead, is his character. He's like a deadbeat son. He's like calling Rey Mysterio deadbeat father, which you probably heard a lot on commentary.
Yeah, so that was some of this is where we get into that what we were mentioning earlier with I don't know if McAfee was which role he was trying to play in all this, because it was like they just kept saying stuff like, "Oh, he beat his son," and it's like, well, what do you mean he beat his son? Like I don't know.
So last year's WrestleMania, Rey and Dominik had a match. And Rey Mysterio did actually bring a belt and whipped his son's ass with that belt. But the whole the whole story behind this is that Dominik betrayed Rey Mysterio, right? He joined up with Judgment Day and then started calling Rey Mysterio deadbeat father. And Rey would not, for the longest time, lay a hand on his son. He's like, I refuse to fight my son. I refuse to fight my son. And until finally Dominik broke Rey Mysterio, forced him to fight him, and Rey Mysterio in last year's WrestleMania beat Dominik. So now you go this year, and Rey Mysterio has his own group called the LWO, Latino World Order. They had a sort of infight where now you have Santos Escobar, who's part of the last night's match with Dom. He betrays Rey Mysterio because he feels Rey Mysterio took a spot away from him in the United States Championship picture.
Okay.
Right? So he injures Rey. Rey comes back. Santos has now created his own faction called Legado de Fantasma, which existed beforehand in NXT and briefly during Santos Escobar's main run on WWE before joining up with Rey Mysterio. So you have Rey Mysterio against Santos and Legado de Fantasma. So storyline, it makes sense for them to reach out to Dom and be like, hey, do you want to help me beat up your dad? And that's what we got last night. It's just, that's what we got. We got Rey and his partner Andrade against Santos Escobar and Dominik Mysterio.
And then I assume you noticed Rey Mysterio's Eagles kind of stuff.
Kelly Green going on. That shit was peak pandering, baby. I love it. He does that every year for every city he's in.
It's good. It's genius. So this is where I get into what are the rules. Sometimes you got to tag someone in. Sometimes you're allowed to double team someone while you're getting double teamed. Your partner just has to watch. I don't really.
Okay, so here's what's happening, right? In tag wrestling, the official rules are this: when you make a tag, right, your tag team partner has to have the tag rope in his hand, and the referee has to see this.
I was going to ask you about that later, because it seemed like only part of the time where people were holding that rope. I thought it might be because they were like concussed and didn't know where they were, and it's like to help them remember.
No. I don't think officially these are the rules, right? But like, obviously, sometimes it's not enforced, of course, because it's a production, it's entertainment, and not an actual. Yeah, it's entertainment. But other than that, after you make a tag, your partner is allowed to stay in the ring, and assist you for up to 5 seconds. Once those 5 seconds are done, your guy has to leave, right?
Then that makes a lot more sense. I was very confused about that. It just felt like every time someone was tagged in all the tag matches that we watched, the person just hung around. I was like, that doesn't seem right.
There is a in storyline or in the thing. There's a grace period that they have. Because again, this is a match and it's part of like the strategy. Like we gotta double team this guy while we can and take advantage of their partner being stuck on the corner over there. Now heels typically push the limits a lot farther than the faces will. And that's why you see these beatdowns a lot more. And it's what leads to what's known in tag team wrestling as the hot tag. And you definitely saw that multiple times. We saw that with R-Truth, right? Where he is getting beaten down by Judgment Day, and the Miz is on the corner. Sorry. Miz is getting beat down by the Judgment Day. R-Truth is right there, like, begging for the tag. He comes in, gets the tag, and comes in with like a blaze of glory, absolutely laying down the smackdown on people. That's what the hot tag build is for. So we saw that a couple times throughout the night last night on the tag team matches.
That makes a lot more sense. Like I told you, what I was watching, there's a lot of choppiness in this, so I missed a decent amount of the middle of this fight. I definitely saw how it ended, but I'd like to hear what you thought about the middle of the fight when it was actually happening. Because I think before we get to the security coming in, there were some other people who came in that I don't know who they are, and I didn't hear. They were all of a sudden there because of the way I was watching. And I will say that Joaquin Wilde jump, that might be the best move of the night, potentially.
That was great. That's his spot with that. So, like I mentioned earlier, the names of LWO and Legado de Fantasma, those were the people of those respective factions ringside. So you had LWO ringside, you had Legado de Fantasma ringside, and that's what all those wrestlers were who weren't in the match themselves, right? They're there because shenanigans are going to happen. You have a lot of wrestlers in these factions, and you want to give them some moments to shine in WrestleMania. So with the Joaquin Wilde spot we saw right there, everybody's getting some offense in. You want as many wrestlers as you can in your WrestleMania to have the WrestleMania moments, and that's what we got there on the outside. Now, talking about the middle of the match, that was just textbook lucha libre. All right, you got to see the high flying style of Rey Mysterio. You got to see a lot of the blending of high flying with technical wrestling out of Santos Escobar and Andrade Cien Almas, as he used to be known, but now he's just known as Andrade. And then you had Dominik Mysterio come in, and he's doing your classic dirty Dom heel wrestling. He's taking shortcuts. He's definitely the least experienced of the group and not as technically polished as everybody else. And you can kind of see it. But what he does really well is just be like a scummy competitor. And you just do not want to see him succeed. And he does that so well. So his character work's really good. So he brought the character work, whereas the other three men, they brought in a lot of the high impact moves, a lot of these moments that wow you. I don't know if you saw this, but there was a spot where Andrade has Rey Mysterio sitting on his shoulders, and they do a diving cross body.
I did see that
together. I've never seen a spot like that. That shit was fantastic. And then one thing that I personally really enjoy about Santos and Andrade, they have a very similar skill set, if you will, or wrestling style, but it does not clash. It actually works pretty well. And what I really loved was seeing the explosiveness of Andrade Cien Almas. So one thing that I love that he does, he has these running knees to somebody who's seated in the corner, and every time, whether it's the camera work or whether it's the genuine velocity in which he hits his opponent or hits that corner, it just looks brutal every time, and I loved it. So as far as the middle action is concerned, this is great. If you told me, hey, like say I'm Triple H, right? And you're like, hey, we want to put on the luchadors as the first match, I would have been like, yeah, because this is definitely going to get the crowd going, because it did at some spots.
And we saw
the end was a little weird.
We saw the one guy try to take off Rey Mysterio's mask, and that was cool.
Yes, in Lucha Libre, that is the most disrespectful thing you can do.
I always thought that was the point. That was how you won, was taking off someone's mask.
So you do that. Not really. There is some matches that have that stipulation, but usually in Lucha Libre, if you do what's called a lucha de apuestas, or like a wrestling match with stakes on the line, and it's mask for mask, The mask comes off after you've been either pinned or submitted.
Okay.
Not generally in the match itself.
Okay.
Although there are matches where whoever demasks the other person, that is the winner, but it's not something I see often.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's just that's how I'd always thought that would work, but because I've never seen one, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Do we get to the end and what was probably maybe your favorite moment of the night?
Oh, dude. Not my favorite moment of the night, but I loved it nonetheless because it's again, you're pandering to the city of Philadelphia, and so the ending wasn't as like this explosive thing that I was hoping for, right? Because it kind of devolved. So the action devolves ringside. The heels are about to. So Santos Escobar has Rey Mysterio hanging out from the ropes, and he makes a call to Dom's like, bash his brains in with a chair, right? Yeah. And you're like, all right, this is gonna be kind of a slower finish to the match. It's like it's whatever. The heels win, makes sense. If you're gonna give Dom, you want to give Dom his like a win over his dad. Like, all right, cool. Santos Escobar makes that happen. Dom goes, picks up the chair, and then out of nowhere, these two gigantic men in like
eagle green masks,
wearing just black shirts and jeans, and one guy has Tim's, right?
Yeah.
One guy takes the chair away from Dominik Mysterio, and the other one throws Dom into the ring post, and then throws him back into the ring. I think he threw him back in the ring. Either way, he disposes of Dom, and then Rey Mysterio.
I think we got a double pin. So
yeah, and then Rey Mysterio does what Rey Mysterio does, and he hits his 619. And then Andrade Cien Almas hits his finishing maneuver, and both men essentially stand tall in victory. And then up come these giant men. One clears the ring ropes in a single jump. Very freak athleticism, especially when you consider what he's been through in his life, all the wear and tear. They demask, and who is it but none other than some of my favorite players and on my favorite team, Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson, baby. And I want to say something before I go into that. All right, before I go into that. These men, obviously we know football players are huge, but so are professional wrestlers. But they made the wrestlers in that ring look tiny.
Yeah, most of your wrestlers aren't lineman height.
Yeah, and even Jason Kelce, he's only like 6'2". He looked gigantic, and then Lane Johnson's, I believe, 6'6". So these guys just dwarfed the wrestlers in the ring who are pretty jacked themselves, but they look so small.
And it's also, you got farm body versus wrestler body, which is a little different thing. Wrestler body is like, it's bulky.
Wrestler body's
it's bulky, but it's still, well, most nowadays, at least the guys at WrestleMania, they're bulky and cut, whereas these football players have guts.
Yeah, but even their guts didn't look like guts. You know what I mean? Like there were some moments where, like the Jimmy and Jey Uso match, whenever they like closed in on them, you could tell these guys don't necessarily have abs. They're big dudes, right? But they don't have abs. You looked at Lane Johnson, you're like, man, he probably, if like this was summertime, he definitely have abs. And Jason Kelce, I'm like, I'm sure he's going to have abs after he retired, like as his retirement goes, because he's trying to cut weight to 250 because he doesn't want to be at his playing weight.
Yeah, we'll just see if he wants to put in the work to have abs, because that's a lot of work when you're old.
Yeah, and 36, but like him clearing that jump I was like, oh my god, this guy's I forget how athletic he really is, and it's impressive.
You had warned us that those guys made an appearance, but I didn't know you were smart enough not to let us know when it was. So that jacked me up when I saw him too.
Yeah, they took when they took the mask.
I knew who they were, basically, probably because you had told me when I saw it. I was like, these are obviously not WWE guys.
No, and here's the thing: when I saw that shit play live, I didn't know who they were. I was like, who the fuck are these guys? Like, because I was trying to go through my mental Rolodex of like, is WWE debuting a new tag team? Did they just sign somebody? Like, I haven't seen anything. And then they take the mask off, and I'm like, oh shit! It's their semi-yearly like WrestleMania tradition of like having a football player come in and interfere in a match. They've had that with Rob Gronkowski. I believe George Kittle did something once, and now you have this.
He got booed in the crowd.
No, rightfully so. Nobody cares that you're a giant wrestling fan, George Kittle. Your team sucks, and we hate you, or we hate your team.
Right.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed that little surprise. This was a fun match.
We should probably
Nothing
mention
super
what
special.
Dom was wearing because the announcers mentioned it, and I wouldn't have caught it if they didn't. I guess his top was supposed to be like an homage to someone that Rey Mysterio used to fight against a bunch.
Yes, but I was caught off guard. Like, I have to look that up, man.
Okay.
Honestly, because
I didn't. They said that, and I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. That's a good idea, but I would never have caught it because I haven't really watched a whole lot of Rey Mysterio in my life.
yeah, like I said, dude, that could have been anybody because I'm like, yeah, he's had multiple rivals throughout the year, so I'm not sure who it was an homage to. Like, was it an homage? Because so Rey Mysterio was a part of ECW, and he had a guy who he wrestled named Psychosis, was his big like rival in that time. Maybe that's who it was, but other than that, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure who
I'm
it could
not
have
even
been.
seeing anything when I look it up that even looks anything similar to what that shirt was. But
No.
oh well.
Oh.
I just thought that
Oh,
was
good.
an interesting thing that the announcers, again, as someone who doesn't know what's going on, when the announcers brought that up, I was like, oh, kind of cool.
Yeah, I wasn't sure who it was, and who knows? I was actually surprised by the end of the match, though. Besides the Eagles, just who won. I didn't expect. I expected, and I think a lot of people expected, who've been following the product, they expected Rey Mysterio to essentially get beat down 3-on-1. Like Andrade was aligned with the other team for a little bit because he's making his return, and he's been a heel for the majority of his run in wrestling. Like he's just a natural heel because you look at him and you're like, there's no way this guy's a babyface. And the fact that he wasn't turned on in this one, nobody betrayed him. I was like, oh shit, okay, that's weird.
I guess I should ask, when they were talking about Dom Mysterio had police called on him getting kicked out of the house on Thanksgiving, I'm guessing that was
a segment. Yeah, that was a segment.
That wasn't like real life. Okay.
No, that was a segment like a year ago. It was pretty good.
That's fine. I was just sitting there like, I actually genuinely don't know if this is something that really happened or.
Yeah. So in storyline, him and Rhea Ripley go to the Mysterio household for Thanksgiving, essentially ruin Thanksgiving, and force Angie Mysterio, which is his mom, to call the police. And Dom goes to the county jail overnight. But him being a heel and being a good heel at that, sells it as if he went to prison.
He's an incredible heel, yes.
Yes, people do not like him, or they love to hate him. They boo him so intensely in a way that I've never seen anybody get booed before. It's it's known as getting heat. He gets so much heat, and it is a work of art. So kudos to him. If you ever told me, yeah, Rey Mysterio's son is going to be just a big loser, heel, swarmy asshole, I'm like, Rey Mysterio's son? What?
Maybe that's why.
And then it's like, oh, it makes sense. Like, it's hard to boo Rey Mysterio, and it's hard to cheer for his son. That's work. That's a work of art right there. So yeah. But yeah, that's all the thoughts I had in that match. That's one of my if I had to rank my order of matches, that would probably be number 4.
Okay.
Where it was really good. But the ending could have been a little bit smoother. Otherwise,
probably tough when you have 2 amateurs running out there to finish it.
Not really. I mean, they just kind of made sure the bad guys didn't do anything. I think what's tough is that you follow the chaos that was the previous match.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so anything that you do in the match, it just doesn't seem as cool as compared to what just happened not that long ago.